TR, here we are again with our Plywood Series, another episode.
Yes, sir.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
In this episode, I was hoping we could just cover a few random questions that have come up either as I was preparing for the series or questions we've had from customers over the years.
Sure.
Or necessary things when it comes to loading, shipping. So I thought the first one, could you touch on how maybe a factor weights of plywood if you're going to load a flat and ship to Alaska or something?
Yeah. So like to take, let's just take half CD 4-ply for an example, a basic product for roof sheathing. So every panel is 32 square feet. So, and the way everything's done in plywood is per 1,000 square feet. So if you're going to calculate the weight of a sheet of half 4-ply, I just happen to know what the numbers are. So you'd take 0.032 times 1,280. That's your weight per piece on half-inch CD. Now, if you go to a thicker panel like 3/4, it would be 0.032 times 1,850.
1.5 of the 1,280, give or take. Okay.
Give or take.
Okay.
5/8 is around 1,600. 0.032 times 1,600. So, it's just a simple math equation. And, it's important when you're trying to load a truck or a container, like you said, for Alaska, because, the last thing you want is the truck to get on the road or the container to get to the dock and, this is too heavy. Right. Yeah, problem.
Your trucker gets a big fine out there in the middle of I-5.
Yeah, and you've got a unit, in Eureka, California,
Not fun.
Not good.
Yeah. In this day and age, the adhesive used in mills, is there more than one adhesive?
Glue type, all exterior glue.
Period. So it doesn't matter if I'm making sheathing or if I'm making finished plywood. It's all
hardwood plywood. Hardwood plywood does use a little different glue because it's just not the same, and they want something that's a different color so it doesn't bleed through.
Okay.
But in the plywoods that we're talking about, it's all exterior glue.
Plywood, sandeds, underlayments, all that stuff for the most part.
Correct.
I remember when I was a kid, seemed like hanging out in the lumberyard in Marysville in the 60s, there was actually like AD interior. I mean, there really was different glues back then.
There was, but even in the late 80s and stuff, or mid 80s, interior glue had gone away.
For the most part, what sizes can you get panels in these days?
Yeah, so the most common is 4x8, 4x9, 4x10. There's a few mills out there that are capable of doing 5x8, 5x9, and 5x10. Other than that, you're going to have to go to a custom shop where they scarf and do other things to build a bigger type of panel.
Okay. I'm assuming that's pretty rare air. You're not going to find those people around.
It's not something that's anything that is normal, no. And it's going to be for, high-end industrials that have a need for, 5x12 panels or something like that.
Okay.
But you have to think in terms of how big a press. The biggest press out there is capable of making 5x10. There's no mill that has a bigger press than that. So anything other than that is going to go to a custom shop.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Sheathing panels, specifically CDX, I guess. What I've seen over the years is terms of 3-ply, 4-ply, 5-ply. Could you talk about what that actually means and maybe common uses for each, or where would I use a 3-ply versus a 5, and if there is common uses for that?
So you're talking if in half-inch there is 3-ply, there is 4-ply, and there is 5-ply, and there's 5-ply struck. So 3-ply is it's not that common anymore. It's just there's some mills make it, but it sells for about the same price. It used to be a little cheaper, and now it sells for the same price or even more in some cases. So it's not common.
It's just not worth it for the mill.
No,
to make
and
it.
it's a veneer. It's a 1/6 veneer. If you're making half-inch 3-ply, you're going to use 3 lines of 1/6. 1/6 is also the crucial veneer for 3/4 CD, and there's not a lot of production in 1/6 veneer, so they're going to keep that 1/6 and put it in their 3/4 CD mix if they have the veneer. They're going to make half-inch 4-ply with 4 lines of 1/8 or what have you.
Okay. You were kind enough to take us down to Hardell and Chehalis and go through the mill. What are the different thicknesses of product? What's the range of thicknesses of product they make at a mill like that these days?
They'll go up to an 1.5 inches. Nothing beyond that.
And is that like a form panel, or what's an 1.5-inch panel?
It's going to be an industrial panel. The most common thick panel they make is 1 1/8 underlayment or 2-for-1, and they make that all the time.
Right.
But if you want something more specialized than that, they will go up to 1.5 inch, but you kind of got to convince them to do it and probably pay them a lot of money to do it because it's a hard panel to make. Takes a lot of press time. So the thicker the panel, the longer it needs to stay in the press. Now you're tying up your hot press for a long period of time and you're not getting that production out.
One thing that I've found a little bit confusing over time, maybe you could add some clarity to it, is I guess tolerances. You know, hey, I want 3/4, blah, blah, blah. But is some panels it is 3/4 and other, or is it always, what's the tolerance at the mill level?
The APA has specific product standards rules for what it can be. So mills will probably go to the minimum, but the answer to your question is no, it's not always just 3/4 inch, and it's not always just 23-30 seconds. It depends on what their veneers are that they have that they can construct a panel out of that day on that shift.
Wow.
So, you know, it's kind of like being a chef, right? Sometimes you don't have all the ingredients to do what you really want to make, but if you kind of do a little shifting around, yeah, we can still make it. We'll just use these veneers over here instead and kind of mix it together to make the thickness and the balance in the panel that you need.
So in that scenario, I really appreciate you sharing that. Would you possibly even like modify the grade stamp a little bit?
No.
Gosh, this panel came out, it's a little different. We've got to change our stamp.
No.
So
you never modify the grade stamp.
Okay.
You've got your order. You've got what's been ordered. Dunn Lumber wants 3/4 CD. That's what the mill's going to make. They're going to make 3/4 CD. They just might. There's a few different ways to make 3/4 CD. There's probably a half a dozen ways to make 3/4 CD, honestly, as far as what thicknesses of veneers you're going to use in the panel. So you can make it 5-ply, you can make it 7-ply. Boise Cascade, for instance, makes a 3/4 CD 4-ply.
Wow.
So, you know, and they're the only mill that I know of that does that. And you can see that on Random Lengths. If you look at the Random Lengths page, you'll see a 3/4 4-ply print, actually, from the old days, because it used to be a more prevalent panel.
Okay. Last question to wrap up this segment. With respect to, I guess, different mills, say the same grade product category, is there an apples to oranges story to tell in some? I know.
Are some mills better than others? Is that
at making certain products, right? Is it like a lot of things? Hey, you know.
Well, I'm not going to name any names, but we make sure that we put the highest grade panels in Dunn Lumber. And there is some quality differences between mills. There's some high production mills out there, and there's some people that really take their time and try and just make the premium panel. And so yeah, there can be some differences. For the most part though, the mills that are left are all really, really well-run mills. They really are. And you know, as far as some of the products that they make, some are straight sheathing, some are sanded and siding and sheathing mills. All the mills make sheathing because it's kind of the product that you use to get your D grade used up and such like that, because that's the interior of a sheathing product.
Gotcha. Okay. And if I remember correctly, it seems like maybe our core plywood underlayment product might fall into that apples to oranges category we're talking about.
Well, your SF34, I believe, is what you're referring to, and it's a custom product. So that's not a commodity item. It's not anything you'd find on the Random Lengths publication, for instance.
So TR goes to a mill and says, I want you to make Dunn's product like this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what it is, it's a B face, which is a solid face with no knots, no voids. And then adjacent to the face, the first core line is solid. So it's a solid core under face is what it's called. And honestly, all your hardwood faced sanded is solid welded core under face. We call it scuff, is what we call it just in general. But the underlayment premium product is specifically designed to be a really high grade underlayment where no high heels or table legs or any sharp object can penetrate that top veneer because there's a core void adjacent to it. So we've taken that out of the deal and made it just solid.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to fill me in on all these miscellaneous questions we have.
Of course.
All right. Thanks, TR.
Thank you, Jimmy.